askreddit. What are some signs that a friend isn't truly your friend? When they only reach out to you when they want something. A variation on this, will not respond to texts, phone calls that you send them, but will instigate completely unrelated conversations days later. I had a really good friend who would often ignore my texts for days on end, many times when I really needed someone to talk to, and then text me to talk about some video game or something without ever acknowledging that I had been reaching out. This can be very true, but sometimes it can happen on accident. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of doing something on my phone and receive a text from a friend, and I'll push it off to read once I am finished. However, it no longer notifies me because it thinks I have seen the text, so I often end up forgetting to respond, and the next time I want to text them or they send an unrelated text to me, I get too absorbed in the current conversation to notice the previous texts I haven't answered. It's certainly a bad habit of mine and something I should try to fix, but I still love and care about my friends and would never want to hurt them. But many people do see the texts and just don't care enough to respond as well. You really have to know the person you are texting to tell if it's intentional or accidental. Accidentally forgetting is certainly one thing. I'm talking about years of consistent ignoring of others' attempts to contact you and then not acknowledging them at all. I certainly have done what you're describing from time to time, but usually open up whatever my next message to them is with "sorry, I just saw this," reply to their message. And then follow that up with whatever my reason for contacting them. The behavior I'm talking about is just entirely ignoring that attempt to be contacted. They have a lot to say about other people you consider friends. Sometimes this isn't always the case. If one of your friends has a toxic friend that you know is bad for them, it's always good to bring it up. I think it's more if the person is constantly running others down to you. You can bank on the fact they run you down to others. If you feel like shit when you are around them, or afterwards, that damaged something inside me feeling. They never check up on you or contact you first. They never invite you to things. They never ask your opinions or what you want. This is what my two friends do too. They never ever want to check up on me to see how I'm doing, and then they get mad when I'm not texting them. Keep in mind this isn't always true. Some people can feel like they're bothering others or are just too introverted or anxious. You put in more energy than them and it never seems to be enough. Got to clarify something though. Being an introvert, I had this newish friend who I could feel was trying too hard to be my friend. We would hang out with our group, but then he would message me through Facebook, sometimes even call me. I don't even do that with my close friends that much. If I was quiet, I enjoy listening to the banter of our group, but I rarely participate. He would go out of his way to strike up a conversation. He was a cool guy and definitely friend material, but he was kinda suffocating me by putting in so much energy. We weren't close enough that I could tell him straight up to back off a bit during my me time, so I ended up rolling with it, but I found that I was getting tired and it started affected me. I would dread hearing my phone ring, etc., but I was too shy to say something about it. One day they're acting like you're their best friend. The next they're acting like you don't exist. Flaking and being generally disrespectful of your time. If you and me make plans, I will be there. On time. And rare circumstances would I cancel, but if I do, it stays in advance. I've had ex-friends, where I'd be at the place waiting ... and after 30 minutes I have to text them, "Hey, where you at?" And they say, "Yeah, sorry, can't make it." They're always cutting you down, especially in front of others. Yeah, and then apologizes every single time after it happens, promising to not do it again. Or try to gaslighting you, saying they weren't that mean. You're just sensitive. They don't celebrate your successes. The day my wife announced our engagement to her ex-BF was the day she realized that friendship had sailed a long time ago. Ex-BF seemed completely incapable of processing the concept that something exciting had happened to someone else. She barely reacted at all, and soon after changed the conversation to how much her and her BF were in love. That meeting just sucked all the air out of my wife's excitement. Took me a moment to realize that BF meant best friend rather than boyfriend. Was a bit confused for a moment. They ignore you a lot. Like. A lot. I had a friend like this recently leave me, calling me a draining source of anxiety behind my back. Realized afterward that there were a lot of signs that they probably didn't like me. Maine was ignoring. I don't mean to sound callous, but I'd take this opportunity to do some self-reflecting if they were that specific about the problem. I'm dealing with the other side of this right now. I have a friend that I do not hate by any means, but she is extremely damaged and anxious, and it is extremely draining to be around. Every conversation eventually cycles back to her worrying over something, blaming herself for something that is definitely not her fault, or overthinking any conversation she has until she starts getting paranoid over every possible implication, even if the person meant absolutely nothing by it. Not to mention, the fact that she is constantly worried about everything going on around her means that she is basically incapable of returning any of this emotional support. She's just too busy being wrapped up in her own shit. I ignore her a lot, but from my end it's because if I don't set clear boundaries and take my own time away from her regularly, she will keep rambling and draining my empathy until I'm so tired and apathetic that I lose my shit on her. That stuff can be extremely toxic to the people around you, and does end up pushing them away because it just completely drains their empathy. It's like the boy who cried wolf, emotional labor edition. Your friends want to, and will, help you with occasional anxiety. But when it's constant and actively exhausting them, you owe it to both of you to seek out outside help and be courteous of what they're dealing with. That's all meant in general sense, not a direct response to you. For you, specifically, just think about it. They might be full of shit and blaming your anxiety when they just didn't want to be friends anymore, but they might also have tried to hang in there and just couldn't because that anxiety made you a very difficult person to be friends with. That's not a permanent character flaw, that's something you can work to change and overcome, and the first step in doing so is being told you've got a problem, so you can actually acknowledge it and seek out help. You start questioning if he or she is really a friend. They try to manipulate you into doing things that are to their advantage but not yours. When someone always tries to one-up you and gets upset/bothered/flustered when you succeed and the friend perceives that he or she is not. Friends should always build each other up, celebrate each other's successes and be supportive when one or the other person is struggling. A little healthy competition in games or sports is just fine, but it should never get petty. When they're only waiting for their turn in a conversation. When they only ask to hang out because someone else wouldn't hang out. I had a friend that was a real friend in school but never really wanted to hang out outside of school, until one summer she invited me to go to a water park with her and her family. On the way there it came out that another friend of hers was supposed to come but suddenly couldn't, and that's why they asked me to come in the first place. This person was a bad friend overall. She were a pathological liar. He made up a boyfriend when she didn't have one and posed as him in group chats with everyone else, lied about things my boyfriend allegedly did, and, since I'd known her longer, I took her side, and generally made lots of jokes at my expense. She also lied and moaned about how bad her life was, saying her parents were abusive when they actually weren't. And whenever she got mad at me for something that never happened, she'd keep bitching and moaning until I told her what a shitty person I was compared to her and how much everyone loved her and I was nothing compared to her. And I was doing this willingly to the point that I actually believed she was a better person than me and I was shitty and unworthy of any love. Looking back now, I realize the reason I was depressed and had such a terrible image of myself and terrible self-esteem were because of this chick. When they don't make the effort to contact you. When you feel like you can't trust them. If they have no loyalty to you and don't defend you when someone is talking crap behind your back. If they make snide remarks about the way you look, dress, weigh etc., I honestly could go on, but we would be here for hours. If you stopped contacting them, how long until they would reach out to you? If the answer was when they need something, cut them off of your life. If you feel attacked by this because you never reach out to your friends to hang out or something, well, start doing it. Friends should go both ways. If it doesn't stop talking to them, or realize you're being a bad friend, it takes 5 minutes to text someone. If you don't, eventually they'll stop taking the time and effort to sustain the friendship and you'll lose a friend. You've heard of a fair weather friend, yes? How about a foul weather friend? Friends who are only around when your life is in shambles, so they can overcome the imperfections of their own situations. I was friends with a gal for nearly 20 years. 20 years. We met in middle school, for crying out loud. She and her husband, married at 18, would be hit or miss in touch unless I was going through a hard time. I get married and things seem great. Distant. But, rough patches in my first marriage? They're there. My brother dies unexpectedly at age 29? They're there, more amazing and supportive than ever. My divorce. They are there so much and such like the BFFs I was needing. I get in touch with an old friend and we hit it off. He proposes and we marry? Somewhat there. We're happy with a baby on the way and a nice house. They're distant. Eventually they basically disappear altogether unless they need a job or credit reference. It's real. This doesn't spell it out as intricately as the situation requires, but you get the idea, I hope. How about when it always seems to be you calling them and not vice versa? Some people just aren't the type to initiate conversations. Also, not every friendship requires constant contact. This is a tough one. I'd say it is a yellow flag, not a red flag. Sometimes the cadence works and there is an implicit agreement that one person will always be the one to initiate. There is people out there who don't like to initiate contact because they prefer their own company and they don't know how to engage a conversation without worrying how they're going to sound.